Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slapendipity, Hobos of Happy Slappy Town, episode 14. My name is Devin, but you can call me Gibby, and I'm here with Eric, who you can call Eric.
Hi. I, you know, I thought you just had something to just auto bring us into, so I didn't want to take up too much time.
Eric, we are equal. We are equal co-hosts here. It's not like, oh, I'm a host and you're a co-host. You're a special guest. No, we are equal co-hosts. I do the introduction, and you should be like, oh my God, it's me, Eric, and today I did something.
Oh my gosh, it's me, Eric, and the other day I did something.
What did you did?
I went to the grocery store.
Do you want to enlighten us on your grocery store adventure?
I do, because I think you would enjoy it, because I think it is a little taste of serendipity.
Little magic.
Little magic.
All right. Well, if I'll enjoy it, then our viewers and listeners would probably also enjoy it because we're kind of holding them hostage. Like if they're listening at this point, episode 14, they either like the same things we like or they are forced to be here. So let's get
Or
started on
they're
our
our
grocery
FBI
store.
agent taking notes on us.
Do you think that we have a shared FBI agent at this point, or do you think that there's two of them? Maybe sharing like some
Oh my
earbuds, but
gosh,
do you think
what
there's
if
two of
there's
them?
two of them and then they're like comparing notes and it turns into a romance movie?
That's
They're
their
like,
like their excuse for like spending time together outside of work is like they have to pour over all of the transcripts of our episodes and then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like one of them reaches for a coffee and the other reaches for it at the same time and they accidentally brush hands.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then it's like, oh my gosh, did you hear what the Devin did? And he's like, no, I didn't. And then the other one's like, oh, well, maybe if we came back to my place after work, I could tell you all about it.
Yeah, the guy I have to watch, Devin Gibby, he just released an hour-long video about Mrs. Afton's identity in Five Nights at Freddy's. I need you to help me comb through it very slowly.
What a cute story. It's in New York, obviously.
Do you think that they're like in
Maybe
a New York City apartment?
I think that's just the default understanding of it. Preconceived biases. I could see it like set in like Texas or something.
I think because so to me Texas makes a little more sense just because I can totally see them being on like a one-story ranch, and you know how like some parts of like
Mm,
Texas and Nevada they don't have yards, right? It's just like sand and rocks in their front yard. I can
yeah.
see them like staked out a house in front of a van, and then like they go home to work on because obviously there can't be one FBI agent per person, so they have multiple targets, and they're in the van staking out one of their guys, and they just like have one of the laptops propped open like on the van in front of them, and they're listening to the podcast or they're watching my videos. And so they're doing two things at once. They're pretending that they're not fans. They're pretending that they don't want to know my FNAF hot takes, but really it's bringing them closer together.
Well, and the funny thing about it could be like maybe they don't enjoy your hot takes, but that's the thing that bonds them is they're like, I can't believe he would think Mrs. Afton is Satada. And the other one goes, I know, right? Could you imagine? That totally doesn't make sense with this thing over here that you conveniently forgot to bring up. Obviously, she's da da da. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're so right. You're so smart. And then
Yeah,
like the other
Gibby
one blushes.
Gibby conveniently forgot to mention that Bellora's song was actually written by the voice actor, not by the creator, Scott Cawthon. And so when he did a 30-minute deep dive into the meaning of the lyrics and like analyzed it like real poetry, he completely neglected the fact that the writer of the series didn't write it. Wow, he's so dumb. I got like 7 comments like that.
And one of them might have been from your FBI agent.
One of them may have been from my FBI agent.
Imagine if they all were.
All of my hate comments on all of my channels.
It's all just one FBI agent being like, I hate this guy so much. He doesn't know what
The
he's
guy
talking about.
The guy in our comment section who's like just agreeing with you all the time is also the FBI agent.
Oh, this
I
goes
like to
so
think
deep.
I like to think that the reason that they started watching us is because some of our happy slappy lore hit a little too close to the truth.
Oh yeah, I mean it definitely gets into like Area 51 vibes.
They're like, "Wait, we've been trying to find the Anywen Bridge since 1983 and these guys are just living there? They have the water-powered TV?"
I thought we have a fireplace in our TV or like a
Eric,
campfire.
it's a water-powered fire. Why is this hard to grasp?
No, I know I understood. I was anyway, I'm just eating my beans over here.
Okay, so did you get those beans from the grocery store?
I'm maybe.
All right, tell me about that adventure.
So I had a little picnic with my friends, but in order to have a picnic, you need to have picnic supplies like napkins and chips and Oreos. Anyway, um,
Can I
I
can I
was,
pause for a second? So you were at my house last night and you had two bags
yeah,
of chips and a box of Oreos. Were those leftover from the picnic, or is there some tragic ending to this picnic story?
no, those were just leftovers, but I didn't feel bad about it because they were unopened.
Okay.
So,
I was imagining like you're sitting alone in the park and no one shows up to your picnic and you have to dejectedly bring your bags of Doritos to D&D last night.
no, no, no.
All right, tell me
Rather
tell me about the shop.
there was so much food. I was like, wow, I have enough for D&D. Um, so I'm walking through. I basically do like 2 laps of the store because I just getting my steps in and making sure I find all the things and et cetera, et cetera. And I, as I go to past one side of the store, um, there's a man in a wheelchair, and then he's on one side of the hall floor. And there, like, the floor is like sectioned off, so it like is kind of narrow. It's like two-person traffic essentially. So this man in a wheelchair is on one side, and then a woman is uh coming from the other direction, and I am behind the man in the wheelchair. So I just kind of, make myself a little smaller so it's easier for the lady to get by. And then I think I never talked to him really. I made myself smaller to like for her to get by, and I think he was like, "Oh, this guy is like I'm in his way or something." So then he moves a bit out of the way for me to move by, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm sorry." Like I didn't the human traffic, and then the woman passed by, and that problem was solved, and I was like, okay. And then he gestured for me to move on, and I was like, okay, I feel bad. I feel like he thinks I was like with my body language saying he was taking up so much space when really I was just trying to afford more space for the woman to pass. But nonetheless, I walked in ahead of him because he made the gesture, so I then got the thing I needed. I then turned around, went back to the other side of the store to get the other thing I needed because I am just mix mashing my list. And who do I run into but this man again? And now we're doing the same thing. And so thankfully, there's no third person to make it weird. We just kind of walk by each other, and he similarly just kind of moves his wheelchair slightly out of the way as he's sitting in it. Um, and I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. Is it because I'm fat? um, and then I get all the things, and then I go to the checkout, the self checkout, and then I'm just kind of walking there, and sure enough, the man in the wheelchair, same man, is there in front of me. And then he like moved out of the way again so that I can go ahead into the self checkout line first. Which, to my knowledge, I was not like walking like fast or like I think I had a chill pace. I was very whatever about it. I'd get there when I get there. And I don't know if maybe he was self-conscious or maybe I'm reading too much into it or maybe he was just being polite. I don't know. But I go to the self-checkout because he lets me move ahead of him and I pay for my things. I go to my car and I put my things away. So then, as I'm putting my things away, I see a 2-liter bottle of root beer going down the parking lot. And I think, huh, well, that's a shame. And then I look from where the root beer was rolling all the way back. So, like, where ideally it would have come from. I see a car with a shopping cart. And I'm like, okay. I finish putting my things away. I then go to the 2-liter bottle of root beer. I pick it up. I bring it back to the car that I think it was. And it's the man in the wheelchair putting his soda away in his car. And I go up to him and I go, did this roll away from you? And he went, yeah. Hey, don't open that up though. And I went, oh heavens no, I would never. Be careful with it. And he's like, yeah, well, thank you. And I said, no problem. Enjoy your day. And he said, yeah, thanks. You too. And that's it.
So you were his little magic, right? Like he does a nice thing, he moves out of the way in the aisle, you get to walk by him, and then he drops his soda, can't chase after it, but you bring it back to him. That's just kindness, paying it forward.
I'm, yeah, I suppose. I suppose. I'd like to think we were each other's magics.
Hmm.
Uh,
Or he was our FBI agent,
or he
you know.
was our
But
FBI
let's
agent. They hired a contractor and he was like, I've got the beat on him. Um,
I have his DNA now. He touched the soda bottle.
oh no, his plan all along.
I'm going to butcher the telling of this story, but there was some police like undercover raid or something. Basically, they wanted to catch this guy who they suspected of being a killer, and they had his DNA from the crime scene. And so they tailed him and they followed him, and he drank from a water bottle and threw it away in a trash can. And then they went and they retrieved the water bottle from the trash can to DNA test it, and then like matched it to the DNA they had from the crime scene. Um, and I don't remember what happened next. I don't remember if this was like inadmissible in court, or I don't remember if they got him on this, but I do remember that's a thing that happened and it was meaningful. It was a big important story.
Okay. I, that's cool.
I'm googling it.
Don't you mean binging it? Don't you mean yahooing it? Don't you mean duck duck going it? What other search engines exist? Don't you mean yelping it? Don't you
I'm
mean
literally just I'm like reading 7 like news articles at once trying to get this story. Yeah, it looks like he was found guilty. The case was cold for 36 years, and then they did
the
the
old
DNA thing. Wow.
bottle snatch?
Yeah, it's crazy that like there were so many murders and crimes that happened in the mid 20th century, and because like DNA didn't it wasn't discovered, people would just like leave DNA all over the place, right? Like, people might wear gloves to hide their fingerprints, but they weren't worried about, like, other kinds of DNA. And so years and years later, when the technology to, like, uncover the stuff was invented, they could just go back and solve all these cold cases.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so if you're like you could take all the precautions in the world in 1960 to, like, get away with your murder, and then they catch you later because they invented a technology to, like, detect something that you weren't even, like, clear or didn't even understand as something that existed. And it makes me think, like, okay, in the future, they might, like, invent that cool robot from Iron Man 3. You all are familiar with the cool robot from Iron Man 3 that perfectly recreates a scene of an explosion at the Chinese theater and makes it so that you can perfectly see every single thing that went down, right? Everyone knows that reference. I'm like, if we can just, like, walk in a room and a robot can perfectly recreate what happened there, like, 40 years in the past, then, like, crime will just go away. Like, we'll just solve every single crime, and there's nothing that could be done to, like, get around that. And I'm not saying that that's exactly the kind of technology that would be developed. Do you hear that, FBI guys? I'm not on to you. If you have that technology, I'm just making this up.
Close.
But something like that, something we can't even comprehend, probably will exist in the future that will make all crime detectable, and it's just crazy to me. It's wild.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I feel like that, right? The offset to that though is it'd be super expensive. And like, are you gonna go into every single home and be like, hang on, we gotta set up our robot and it costs a couple $100 million every time we set it up. So I think one of the more like, maybe we'll get to that point. I think the thing we'll make first is the thing from Minority Report, I think it is, where it's like predicting if someone will commit a crime and then arresting them beforehand.
Well, that's the plot of Minority Report and
Spoilers.
Avengers Civil War 2. That's not a spoiler, that's the premise of the movie. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, maybe now people will think we did actually spoil it, but it was just in whispers, and then they'll listen real hard.
Okay. So I also went to the grocery store.
No way.
It's crazy. It's like I do it once a week. And my story is that because I start, like, whenever I go, I just buy everything in bulk. And what I like to do is I like to go to the self-checkout line so I don't need to interact with any human beings. But my cart was so full, and there's a sign on the self-checkout line that says 20 items or less. And last time I tried to go there, a lady stopped me and said, "Hey, this is only 20 items or less." And I said, "Okay." So this time I went straight to the normal line. And I've maybe gone to the normal line like 5 times in my entire life. And so I wasn't, like, sure what to do. Like, I got up there, I saw that little, like, divider thing you're supposed to put between your items and the person's items in front of you, and I'm like, okay, I remember this from my childhood. I remember my training. I put this down, and then I start putting my stuff up. And then I was putting my stuff up, and I'm like, well, if I put up my, like, 2-liter bottle of seltzer water and the conveyor belt starts moving, it might, like, topple over. But if I put it on its side and it starts moving, won't it just, like, stay in place? It'll just roll? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how many boxes of blueberries I can stack on top of each other. So, what most people would see as a totally normal thing that they've probably done every week for the last 50 years of their lives, I'm sitting there in utter panic and confusion as I'm trying to figure out how to check out at a grocery store that isn't a self checkout.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Did you figure it out?
Yeah, when I was done, the guy asked if I wanted help, like, bagging my stuff, but there was someone in line behind me. So I was like, "No, you can start." Like I said, "No, like, I can do it myself," because I wanted him to, like, start helping the other person. I didn't want them to, like, wait for me all frustrated.
Mm,
But then I realized that he wasn't going to start scanning their stuff until all of my stuff was removed.
mm.
So it ended up that him and the lady behind me both just stared and watched me as I packed my stuff slowly. And I'm like, I was trying to be nice and I just made the situation so much worse.
Tragic. Tragic.
Big tragedy.
As someone who did work as a cashier for a hot minute, just throw your things on the belt, man. It'll get figured out.
Even without the dividey line?
I mean, put the dividey line down. We're not monsters, but like,
Yes.
how high can you stack your blueberries? The height of the person scanning the items. How
Okay.
should you have your 2-liter beverages standing up or on their side? Doesn't matter. 50-50.
The last thing, so because blueberries are like soft, they were the last thing that I put into the bags, right? Like they were at the top.
Yeah.
And so like they were the last things I was putting in. And the guy like leaned over and he said like, "Hey, don't forget your blueberries." Now, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the show before, but I am very hard of hearing. So I swear I heard him say, "Those are beautiful blueberries." And so I said, "Thank you," and then put them away. And like 30 seconds later, I processed that he did not, in fact, say, "Those are beautiful blueberries." He said, "Don't forget your blueberries." And thankfully, me saying thank you is an applicable response to both of those things.
Yes.
That could have gone very wrong, right? Like if he said, "Don't forget your blueberries," and I said, like, 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 yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been not good.
I also, how do you, I mean, I'm aware, hard of hearing, tragic, but like, don't forget your blueberries. Okay, blueberries was heard the same. So the don't forget your to use sounded like those are beautiful, which has like so few syllables in common.
No, the sounds are so similar, right? Like, don't forget your beautiful, or right, like
Nah, that's
it
a
depending
stretch.
depending on how you pronounce it, and my hearing, like it does happen a lot.
I mean, sure. I'm sure. Sure. Have you looked into hearing aids?
I've not looked into them. I'm attempting to make an appointment to go to an ear doctor, but my schedule is very full because I have this podcast I do every week. I have to sweep under the bridge. I'm very busy.
I mean, we can. I'm sure the people would be more than content to, have you go to the doctor.
Yeah, so like I made an appointment. I'm like, oh, I can go in next week, but I forgot that the Anywhen Bridge had taken me like a year in the future. So now that appointment's like over a year from now. Very unfortunate.
Woof. Woof. Woof.
I'm trying to remember the exact details, but a couple weeks ago, when I was at my job at the movie theater, there was this lady in line, and she was like the only person in line. And the bartender, I was walking by, and the bartender like stops me to ask me a question. So I'm like standing at the front of the queue of the line, talking to the bartender over the counter, and then like the conversation, like the question has been answered, and now it's just sort of devolved into like the kind of small talk that happens at the end of an interaction at work, where they're like, okay, like, I'm like, okay, ask me, feel free to talk to me if you have any more questions. And they're like, hey, thank you for like helping me, whatever. And so I'm trying to like help this along. And I said something like, hey, can you help, hey, can you help check this person out? Like in reference to the person in
Sure.
line. And the way that it slurred out of my mouth, and again, this took like 30 seconds for me to process. The way it came out of my mouth and the very dirty look that this lady shot me was that it definitely sounded like I said, "Can you please help this gentleman?"
Okay.
So this is a case where I meant to say like, "Hey, can you please help this gentleman? Can you please help this person out? Can you please help this gentleman? Can you please help this gentleman?" And the person heard, "Can you please help this gentleman?" And I walked away and I was like, on one hand, I'm extremely embarrassed. On the other hand, I didn't hear it wrong. She did. So why would I be embarrassed?
Uh, I mean, if you are slurring that badly,
Hmm.
some of the fault is with you.
Well, it's either my fault when I say it wrong or my fault when I hear it wrong. I refuse to accept both.
I don't think that's how it works.
If I'm going to get in trouble for seemingly pronouncing gentleman, and I'm going to get myself in trouble for hearing beautiful blueberries, then that's just not fair, because that's only me getting in trouble.
Well, you didn't get in trouble for the blueberries. In fact, you said a perfectly normal response despite the blueberries. So, it
So
worked
that,
out.
I guess, I did, I will say, they are beautiful blueberries.
Are do you look at
I
them?
mixed them. They're big and juicy, and I got this one brand this one time where the blueberries were huge, and they had like no flavor, and they didn't have any good squish to them. They were very like you bite into them, and they're very like I don't know, solid, thick on the inside with no flavor. These are big, they're beautiful, and they're sweet, which is great because I mixed them into Greek yogurt, and Greek yogurt is very, very I don't know, bland, just a very like sharp taste. And so the sweetness of the blueberries really helps with that. And so the fact that these blueberries are so sweet really counterbalance that. So I will say there were some beautiful blueberries.
Amazing. Really quick, you totally found blueberries on steroids with that earlier brand.
Oh yeah, no, these were definitely like the I'm not gonna say the super cheap brand, but like size over taste quality
Yeah.
was definitely like the goal for that brand. Like, oh, we'll get all the money because people will buy our blueberries. But I'm sure that however they bred them is like, oh, we'll make them bigger. But then like the sweetness is still the same, so then the density of sweetness is less, and yeah, it's just gross.
Tragic. You hate to see it. You hate to see it.
You hate to taste it.
Oh my gosh.
So I do have two things I want to comment on. Let's start with the funny one.
Okay.
You ready for the funny one?
Yeah, throw me a funny.
Um, so Chris Chan
Okay,
received
and I'm out.
received 2 votes for the nomination of the Libertarian Party candidacy for president,
Okay.
and I thought that was really funny.
You might have had something to do with that.
See, the thing about that is like it's not impossible for anyone watching, listening who for some reason has no context to well, if you know who Christian is, but then don't know who I am, which is probably a lot of people, I'm arguably the second biggest Christian person on the internet, behind Geno Samuel. If you watch the comprehensive Christian documentary, then that's him. So there are in fact people who I will run into who will ask me questions about Christian. One of the people one of my employees, it's like his last day this week. And so 3 days before his last day, he discovered that I had a YouTube channel because someone else mentioned it to him. And so he just goes to it. And he's like, Devin, you make a lot of videos about Christian. I'm like, yeah. And so then he just starts asking me all these questions about him. He's like, what do you think Christian's favorite Star Wars movie would be? I'm like, well, that's not a question I can really answer, my guy. But yes, there are in fact people who are in the camp of potentially hearing about facts from Chris's life from me, which is a big burden to have on my life, which ultimately is meaningless. But I still feel the stress.
Gotta get one of those massages. Relieve the knots from your joints and let the stress wash off you.
I think I need to relieve the knots from my brain. Like just massage out all the ridges, just go total smooth brain.
Mm, mm, mm.
And if anyone out there doesn't know who Chris Chan is, do not look it up, please, for your own sake.
Okay, so that was the funny.
Mm-hmm.
What's the not funny?
The not fun. It's not that it's not funny. It's just like it's not it's not as funny, you know. So last episode, which if my math is correct, will be going up the same day as this episode, I think. I think we'll be caught up, right?
Maybe.
Episode 13 and 14 I think are going to go out the same day.
Possibly.
So last episode I talked about how the content I make is just too long, man. And you're like, you should make shorter content. And I said, yeah, but I don't know how. And then we came up with the idea together that I would just make a very simple video about my ghost story.
Uh-huh.
And I wouldn't animate it. I wouldn't like go to the scene and get pictures. It would just be me looking at the camera telling the story. And so in the last week, I did that.
Okay, nice. Bravo.
No script, just me looking in the camera, telling the story as I remembering it, editing it. It's already uploaded. I have the thumbnail done. I just need to do like the boring YouTube stuff, like giving it a title and editing where the ad breaks are. And then that might even go up the same day as this podcast, maybe a little before, maybe a little after.
All right, juicy.
Yeah, no, it's just nice. It's like this thing that an idea we came up with last episode now exists. Like it didn't exist, and it wouldn't have existed unless we had brought it up last episode. That's just very cool. I'm very happy that in this 1 week span, I have completed this goal. I've completed this project.
Nice. Did you feel...
Yeah. So
Oh, sure.
I was just going to say, if you guys want to hear this ghost story, because now I can't tell it on the podcast, it's going to be on Horror Homestead, and it is about 16 and a half minutes long.
Now, here's my question was that do you find that to be a sustainable way? Do you think you could do that for other videos? Or like, did you just kind of get lucky this one time, right? Because you were like, oh, all of your videos are like these gargantuan things. So do you think this is like a realistic method that you can implement for other videos?
So one of the reasons that this was able to have such a quick turnaround time is just because it's a true story of something that happened to me, and so I didn't need to script it, and there were very few visuals. There's only 2 visuals that's not just my face in the entire thing, and it's a picture of a casserole dish, and it's a picture of a scene from E.T. where he's hiding in a closet. And those are the only 2 visuals that's not just my camera. So unless the thing I'm talking about is also a similar type story, right? Not like I used to do a show called Week in Weird, where I would have to like show the article I'm reading or maybe pull up relevant pictures, and so like there's a lot more editing involved. So unless it's like, okay, there are no pictures involved because I'm just saying something that happened to me, I don't know if I'd be able to make more content like this. I did get the idea after my previous FNAF video where people were just asking all these questions in the comments where I'm like, I really want to respond to this question. Like one of these questions.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't be a full video. So what I can just do is I can make like a frequently asked questions video. And it can be a lot more low-key, again, no script. I read the question, I give the answer. Maybe the minimal editing would be like putting a picture of the comment of the question on screen, right? And maybe every couple weeks I could do an answering your guys' questions video. And so that would be a nice, easy way to get out fresh content that doesn't need to be scripted, doesn't need a bajillion hours of editing, and that would really take a lot off my plate. With that said, that's kind of all of the content I do on my Chris Chan channel, and it's still been multiple weeks since I've been able to make one of those videos, because I just don't have the time in my day, in my week, to make all the videos I want to be making.
Have you tried using the Anyone bridge to go back in time to work on it as you're working on it?
So as we both know, the Anyone bridge cannot be used to do any amount of financial gain. Otherwise, obviously, we would not still be hobos. So unfortunately, I can't use it for that.
I would have won the lottery so many times.
Yeah, exactly.
Curse this wizard.
Okay. That's actually an amazing segue. So I'm going to keep these details very, very vague. But somebody I know, someone who me and you both know, somebody very close to them in their life won the lottery.
Well, hot tamales.
And I only recently found out about this. They're just like, they were talking to me and they're like, yeah, this person I know won over $1 million
Wheel.
from like a Powerball ticket. Not a Powerball, but like one of those, not a scratcher, but a real lottery ticket.
Sure.
And that sent me on a spiral because I was just like, wait, what do you mean people actually win the lottery? What are you talking about? What do you mean I have a two degrees of separation from somebody who won $1 million in the lottery? That's not real.
Sounds fake, even.
Yeah, it does sound fake. It like recontextualized my life where I'm like, why am I working so hard if I could just win $1 million in the lottery?
I mean, yeah, I think that's everyone's thoughts, and then it's like, wow, you also have a higher chance of being struck by lightning than winning the lottery, so.
Okay, so if I start spending more time outside and increase my chances of being struck by lightning, will that also increase my chances of winning the lottery?
I don't think so.
I think so. I think that's how causation works, right?
No. I do know if you get struck by lightning and live, and I guess if you die, but you want to live, you get crazy lightning scar burns.
Yeah, it depends on like where it hits you and all that fun stuff. There's a statistic. It's actually okay, this is very interesting. This is just really about the nature of like correlations versus causations. Where it's like if you are struck by lightning once in your life, there's a very high chance you'll be struck again. And that's just because the kind of people who get struck by lightning are like park rangers and people who have to work outside during storms.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, of course, they are more likely to be, struck more than once because that's like their line of work. And so, your intuition might be like, oh, I guess some people are just more naturally lightning rods than others. But obviously, that's just not how the data works. And it's a similar, correlation causation type relationship with the very often cited statistic that 50% of marriages end in divorce. Right? Like a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, well, these people are getting married, so there's a 50% chance they'll get a divorce. And that's not true. That's not how it works. The people who have been divorced are more likely to get divorced more times. So, like, if one person gets divorced like 6 times, they make up for the other 6 couples that don't get divorced. So it's not that one half of all pairs will get divorced. It's that it is that one half of all marriages will end in divorce, but not one half of all people will get divorced. If that makes sense.
Wild.
Yeah, so it's just like interesting to think about statistics and how much I hate how like media and headlines spin everything. My favorite, the thing that like convinced me to never trust any statistic in a headline was, I believe this was when I was in high school, maybe like my first year of college. My teacher, my professor, like put a headline on the board and it was like, study shows that birthdays are extremely healthy. Studies show that the more birthdays a person has, the longer they will live.
Okay.
And then he clicked the slide and goes to the next page, and it's like, study shows that birthdays are deadly. People who have more birthdays are more likely to die soon.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so this is clearly the same fact, right? That is just portrayed in 2 different ways, and obviously we all inherently understand why, the more birthdays you have, the older you are, and therefore the longer you live, but also the less time you have left. And so once I was shown that, like, a simple concept like this could be literally spun into whatever way the author wants it to be spun, I'm like, oh, I probably should not just read a headline about the economy and believe it. And that's why I don't believe anything I read. I'm not a sheep.
Way to go. You're just a sigma in a sheep's world. Like a shepherd or something.
Yeah, people go around and they're like, oh, did you know, like, that the smarter you think you are, the dumber you actually are? And I'm like, yeah, that's why I just go around telling people I'm a moron.
You know what I think is a crazy statistic?
What?
The likelihood of hearing Legrand Chase 2 more times. 2
2 more times
more
in one
times
episode?
in one
That's
episode.
crazy.
That's crazy. And I think one of them is about to start now.
Oh man. Well, let's see if that statistic is accurate. Hey Eric, the mail's here.
Devin, I need you to stop
So
that.
no. So we got a this is actually interesting. It looks like instead of tying it to a rock, the postman like put a wax seal on this letter, which is interesting. And there's a weird symbol on the wax seal. I kind of ripped it when I was trying to open it. Maybe we can investigate that next time.
With forensic
And then
science.
yeah, it dissolved itself in the river. Maybe if we ever develop those robots that can see the past, we can figure that out. Anyway, so this letter reaches us from Sophie with 5 E's at the end, 4 E's at the end. I can't count.
It's okay.
So this is addressed to both of us.
Wow, thanks. I didn't even hear the thing.
It says, "Hope you are both well. I guess this is for the two of you, but I'll provide some context for my question. I've been stood up on every date I've been on throughout my 20s.
Oh my god.
The reasons usually being, they thought I looked intimidating, they thought I was a catfish, or a couple of them met up with someone else and sent pictures of it to me and then put it on social media."
Wait.
They specifically say they met up with someone else in an intimate fashion and sent pictures of it to me.
What the heck?
Yeah, she continues, she says, "I often get told the next day by these clowns, quote, there'll be someone else out there.
Oh,
Guys, there has not been an effing soul who has turned up."
what the? I'm so I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I don't mean to dwell on this, but like I just need to make sure I understand. Like people would stand her up, and then they would meet up with someone else and then send pictures to her. That's wild.
That is what this is saying.
What is that? I'm so sorry, Sophie with 4 E's. That sounds horrendous. That's rough.
Yeah,
I'm
this is
sorry.
like
I'm sorry. I don't mean
I hope
to.
no one thinks that we are laughing at Sophie's situation, more just like at the absolute state of humanity that like people would do this.
Yeah, that's so messed up. Like I I don't know. I think kind of like the lottery thing, like you hear stories about this, but like surely this doesn't happen. And oh my goodness, that's so sad.
And I guess it's more like the lightning striking the same person more than once scenario where, you know, she says that like some people thinks that she looks intimidating, people think that she's a catfish,
Mm,
right? So clearly she just has this like this overpowering, you know, feminine aura, and so it intimidates a lot of weak men.
yeah, I guess so. I mean, but hey, at least you're dodging the weak ones. You don't need them.
Yeah, that would genuinely be my response, is like if someone's going to treat you that way on a first date, they're not going to treat you well in a relationship, and that's definitely a bullet dodged.
Yeah, 100%. I, yeah, definitely not worth your time or energy.
Yeah, so her next sentence is, "It's frustrating and kind of upsetting if I overthink it. A huge part of me has stopped caring, and since I've accepted my life of solitude." Um, I would say that while that kind of mindset might help get over the hurt in the moment, right? Especially whatever phase in your life you're currently in, I would say that overall, nobody should, I'm going to say, accept a life of solitude. People should always be open. They should try to deconstruct their walls and get out there and like find new people, whether it's friendship, whether it's intimate relationships, whether it's true love. Just like right now you might not be in the headspace or even like the lifestyle where something like that is easy. but I think that nobody should ever give up on love because love is magic.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that for a second, I actually kind of have I'm in a similar mindset as Sophie with 4Es actually. The other day I just kind of had an epiphany where I was like, you know what? I think I am happy to be single. It's not too bad sometimes. And I haven't necessarily resigned myself and like, oh, I'll never find love ever again, or I want to be alone forever. But like, you know, if it happens, it happens. Uh, but and I'll still make efforts at some points. But there is just a certain amount of like, nah, like when you've been on the market, quote unquote, um, long enough, I think you do just hit a certain point where you're like, man, this is stupid. I'm going home. I'm taking myself off the market, and this is dumb.
Yeah, I have a lot of, because, at my job, I have a lot of people who are very, very close to me who range in age from like 21 to 30. And then myself, obviously, I'm currently 28. All at very different points in their lives, but all working in the same building, all arguably having very similar schedules. And I think a lot of people have come to similar, like, perspectives. So, like, one of my friends, the guy I went to get pretzels with, he's taking a break from work to travel around Europe for a month. And so he was like, I'm not going to look for a relationship because I'm going to be off the continent for an entire month,
Yeah.
like in a month. Like, why would I look for someone right now when I'm then going to disappear and be off the grid? Maybe I'll get murdered
Why?
in
Oh
Paris.
my
Like, why
goodness.
would I put someone through that?
Sure.
So I'm like, that's a very good mentality. One of my other friends, I talked about this a few episodes ago, recently moved to California to pursue a dream job. And he was only planning on staying out there for like a year, right? Because he's doing this job. And then once the job's over, he's going to try to turn that into a career back home. And he said that the only thing that could possibly keep him out there after this allotted time is if he found true love.
Mm.
And I thought, like, that is such a good headspace to be in, because as much as I think that you shouldn't be scared, especially when it comes to career moves, right? Like, I am terrified of leaving my job to do YouTube full time, but I also know that it's the right thing to do, because if I don't do it, I'm going to regret it forever.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, you should never put your career over like potential true love. And so the fact that this person would be like, I'm going to leave my family behind, I'm going to like potentially not like follow my dream job if I fall in love. I'm like, that is, I agree with that mindset.
I mostly agree with. I think there are. I mean, it depends on what you want out of life. Maybe your sense of purpose is in your career, and you don't want that in your love life. And also just the other awkward thing of like, okay, if I'm all the way over here, but my family is all the way on over here, and like true love is true love, and that's nice, but you know, I guess it depends on the relationship you have with your family to
It
then.
depends on the relationship you have with your family and then the relationship you'd have with this person. But like, I think that the prompt for this imaginary scenario is like, it's the kind of person who I would leave my family on the other side of the country for. Right? Like
Sure, sure.
that was the mind game.
Yeah.
I should talk, maybe not right now, but in a future episode, about what I think like the key factors to life are, because like you just kind of brought up how there's a difference between success in your career and like, love and like the balance of those. And I have a very solid like breakdown of how I view these things. And so that could be a topic for a future episode.
You can't promise things for future
Um
episodes. We said that.
Listen, I'm not saying like, oh my god, I promise I'm going to review the book I'm reading in a future
Oh my
episode. I'm
gosh, guys,
saying
he's
like,
gonna review the book he's reading.
the book I'm reading is Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. You guys do not want to hear my review. But like this is definitely something that will come up the more that we talk about
Sure.
it. But I will say that my own current feelings about relationships is that I work at a movie theater I am a manager. We hire high schoolers and college students. We're not hiring somebody my age to do the lower level positions. I'm not allowed to date anyone in the lower level positions. There's a 0% chance, I'm not working in an office. I'm not Jim from The Office, There's a 0% chance I'm going to meet somebody at work who could be a romantic partner. And because I spend so much time at work and I spend so much time under the bridge recording this podcast, I have like resigned myself to knowing that until I make a big life change, until I quit my job, until I start going to, I don't know, square dancing every night or something.
Balls.
Although, yeah, I don't know, maybe me and Eric, I'll meet someone at the Lorcana tournaments or we can go to speed dating. But until I make a life change, I know that I'm not going to meet anyone because my current lifestyle just doesn't allow it. But I'm okay with that because I'm not 30 yet. I think if I turn 30 and I'm single, I'll probably have a panic attack. But, we got a year and a half till then.
It'll be fine.
And then I think you had some sort of notion about like not really looking for anyone right now because of your future plans.
Well, as I said, I had my epiphany. I just keep seeing couples interact and I'm like, wow. Some couples, man, they just don't hmm hmm hmm. So, that's nice. But then also yes, like I'm gonna I don't want to tease too much, but there's some cross country road tripping in the works and stuff like that. So, and then similarly for like I'm not in a point to like super meet people. I don't know. Like I go bouldering, I go to the Lorcana tournaments, maybe something there will happen. But I'm not like putting as much energy as I could be into finding someone, and I'm okay with that for now.
Yeah, so it all depends on your priorities and also what you allow yourself to do, right? Like, I would not be okay. Like, I'm not okay not like getting married one day, right? And the fact that I know that my current job won't allow for that means I know that my time at that job is like limited, right? Like, I will not be there for much longer, and that is one of the big factors.
Just hire a
So
manager.
I guess I think that corporate would frown upon me dating like another manager, and the chances of us hiring someone who's like qualified for the job who would also be compatible with me is very low.
I know.
So I guess my final like advice for Sophie is that if you're content with being alone right now, that's great. That's a great mindset, a healthy mindset to be in right now. But you shouldn't give up. And if this is something you value, you might have to make other life changes to allow yourself to be capable of finding that love.
Mm-mm-mm.
But all of that to say that she ends the email with a question that we haven't even touched
I
on
was
yet.
gonna ask, like, did we finish it?
No, this was the context for the question.
Amazing.
All right, so the question is, do you have any nightmare or lame stories of a date to share? Do you have any
Ooh.
nightmare date scenarios?
Not nightmares.
Okay.
So, I've been on dating apps for a while. And it depends on a little bit on like, uh, some of them never led to dates, but like the amount of like ghosting that happens on with online dating is just horrendous. And I'm not fully. I may have done it once or twice myself when my back in the day because I didn't know how to be like, hey, I'm not interested. Like I don't know. There's it's a lot of like weird stuff to learn how to like online date in this way, especially since people tend to forget that you're talking to other people. So it can be a little intimidating to be like, this was a lovely conversation, bye. In a more polite way, of course. But yes, I'd say none of them have been nightmare. I guess Devin, you can tell me if this would be a nightmare to you. This was one of the first. dates I ever went on because of like Tinder. Are you ready?
I am
You gotta
ready.
buckle in. Uh,
Hold on, hold on, hold on.
yeah, every
We have, you know how like in junkyards, like people throw away cars, and like some of them have those really cool seats, like the
oh
same
yeah,
kind of
for
seats
sure.
that you'll find in like a retro
Yeah,
diner. Like you're in the diner and they're like, "Oh, the seats look like it's an old car."
yeah,
Well, we're even cooler than them because the ones we tore out of the junkyard actually still have seatbelts.
nice.
So I'm gonna get
Get
in my
in
little
there.
chair, gonna buckle my seatbelt. I am ready. Hit me.
Um, so I messaged with this woman, and okay, in terms of age, I believe this was a long time ago. This is one of the first ones. So I think I would have been like 2021, and I think she was like maybe 22, 23. She was definitely just a smidge older than me. And we talked for a week or two and like hitting it off pretty well. Conversation flowed and this and that. And at some point, again, I forget the exact whatever's, but I was like, hey, like, I, like to take you out. Like, can you want to plan for a date this weekend? And she went, oh, yeah, like, let's, do XYZ. And I went, okay, cool. And, we planned it out a bit or whatever. And, like, the day before, she messaged going, hey, really sorry. I can't make the date, so and I was like, oh, okay. Are you okay? Like, did something just come up? Like, are you good? Like, I'm sorry if anything bad happened to you. And she was like, no, no, like it's more or less fine. Just like something came up and I kind of have to deal with it. I was like, okay, sure, sure, sure. And I was like, do you still want to go on a date? And she was like, yeah, yeah, for sure. And I was like, okay, cool. So we then planned out a date for the next weekend. And yeah, still kind of chatted a bit. And then that weekend came, and the day before she went, hey, so sorry, sorry, I'm not going this weekend. I was like,
Oh no.
okay, um, like I get you don't like, and she was like, no, no, I for sure still want to go on a date with you. You seem like really nice and cool, but like, and I was like, okay, well, next weekend, I guess. And she was like, for sure next weekend. And then the next weekend comes. And she goes, hey, so, ugh. And I'm like, okay, this has happened twice now before. Are you really gonna tell me for a third time? No, actually, I have other things coming up. Um, and she was like, well, I had these plans with my sister. She just came into town, so like, And I was like, okay, like I if you want to see your sister more than me, like I guess that's fair. I don't know that I'm like gonna do much. Like I think that I might just end this because I've been like being strung along for like almost a month now.
Just hit him up and be like, "Hey, if you want to see your sister more than me, that's cool. Because honestly, I'd like to see your sister more than you too."
Oh, dang, dang. That would have been good. And by this point in the time, we had like exchanged phone numbers. So I think she called me. She did, and she was like, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. Like, I was telling my friend how I met you, and I was like, twice now we like agreed to see each other and we haven't. So, like, you're, do you want to come to Olive Garden with me and my sister on a double date? And I was like, um, sure. And she went, okay, cool. Like, it's tomorrow, it'll be at this time, and that'll be that. And I was like, okay, got it. Locked in, buckled up. And we hung up. And then the next day came, and as I was getting ready, putting on my nice clothes and stuff, because I was still kind of hyped, because I, just dates are exciting, even if you have been strung along for a month. I get a call from her, and
Eric, I swear.
she
Eric, I swear.
goes, "Hey, so my sister canceled."
Oh
And I was like, "Okay." So like, yeah, we aren't going to Olive Garden anymore. Like, and I was like,
my god.
okay, well, like we could do something without like our what? And she was like, okay, wait a minute, like, and she was like, have you ever been laser tagging? And I was like, no. She was like, okay, we're not going to Olive Garden, but we're gonna get a laser tag. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that sounds cool.
She's really turning this around.
I had never gone laser tagging before either, so I was
Oh
hyped.
my gosh.
And she was like, okay, meet at this place and we'll like laser tag. And I was like, okay. And so I drove to this place, and we can factor this into whether if you think this is a nightmare, Devin.
Okay.
She lived like an hour and a half away. Or
Okay.
rather, I don't know if the location of the laser tag was an hour and a half away. I don't know if she like lived, wherever. I don't know how many laser tags there are. So I drive, get to laser tag. She is there, and she's not a catfish or anything. Like,
Not a catfish or
not a
intimidating.
catfish or intimidating. She was maybe a little intimidating, which just kind of added to the fun of it. Um, and she was like, "Hi, nice to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you." She was like, "I'm so sorry for everything," and I'm like, hey, we're here now. Like, let's just have fun and a good time. And so we play laser tag for however long. Um, it was pretty fun. It's so dark and so confusing. Um,
And so sweaty.
and so sweat. No, don't be weird about it. But yes, you are
No, I
running
wasn't
around.
being weird about it. I just mean in general, yeah.
We couldn't even run around actually because there were like a lot of like slopes and stuff. So, you could like very easily run into another person because if you like ran and then running up on an incline or running down on an incline. So we played laser tag. I have no idea what the scores were. I think she scored higher than me, and that's all that matters really. I don't think she might have gotten like top five or something. I came in like last. I wasn't good at it. And she was like, "Oh, like that was real cool and fun. Like, do you want to go to like a 24-hour place and like get a coffee or something?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So we talked for a bit. I think some of her friends just coincidentally came into the store, and she was like, I swear I did not like call them as like the date's going bad backup emergency plan. And I was like,
Mm.
you're good, no worries. And her friend, actually, I forgot this and just remember that telling the story. Her friend, he just got broken up by his girlfriend. And so they were coming to this place to like get ice cream and whatever, and they were gonna do like a Lord of the Rings trilogy marathon. And she was like, "Hey, like I have to go for my friend, but like if you want to come, they're down for that, but I also get if you don't want to be in a house filled with strangers. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be in a house filled with strangers. We can just end it here. Um,
You turned down 12 hours of watching a movie with this girl?
yeah, with her however many friends after a month. I was like, the night, if ending the night here will end it on a good note. That's good enough for me. I then drove home in a downpour of a rainstorm. Uh, and that was the date. Now, this is where I ask you if this was like a nightmare or a bad date, because the date itself wasn't too shabby. Everything before that was less than ideal.
Less than ideal.
So would you say that was a nightmare, Devin? Did listening to that make you cringe in your heart?
Um, I think that the all the canceling, no good. Some people are just like that. I know some people who are very dear friends of mine who are just like that, and you have to learn not to take it personally. Obviously, that's a lot easier if they're your close friends as opposed to like a stranger.
That you're trying to go on a
But
date with, yeah.
it sounds like she turned the date around. It sounds like you had a nice
Yeah.
time. It sounds like she would have been willing to spend more time with you that night.
Yes.
Um, I would hope that now at your current age, you would have said yes to the adventure of going to watch Lord of the Rings. But I guess like the main question is like, how did this end up? Like, did she just keep canceling on you after that, or was it just a nice and amicable break
Oh
eventually?
my goodness. Okay. How many more details? They'll still be vague, but like how much more in
Mm-hmm.
do you want to go on this story?
It is your life story, and I've never heard it before. You share whatever
That's
details you are
crazy. I
comfortable
must
with.
have told you.
I just I just want to say real quick. So like my only relationships have been my high school sweetheart and then one of my coworkers. This is before I was a manager. So like my best friend at work, and then we started dating. So I don't have any first date stories
Mm-mm.
because it was just like I had my best friend and then we started dating, and then I had my best friend and we started dating.
Yeah.
Real quick, I did do a laser tag date. Um, Me, my girlfriend, one of my and your very good friends, and my a lot of my girlfriend's friends, including your future girlfriend. We decided to go laser tagging instead of going to like the homecoming dance. Like we were so cool, we're not going to the homecoming dance. We're going laser tagging as a group. And so that was fun. I think that must have been freshman year of high school.
Sounds
But
about
yeah,
right.
that's my input. So yes, continue your story.
So I get home, probably just go to bed, whatever. I then I don't think at this point I had as the kids say, Facebook stalked my date at this time. And so I was curious and I found her Facebook, which was not hard and I don't feel was like a breach of privacy or much of anything really because, we went on the date. It's fine. So I then see like her commenting on this guy. This guy would make a post of like, uh, good morning, babe. And that would be it. It would just good morning, babe. And he was, you know, I then clicked on his thing, and he was not in a relationship or anything, according to Facebook. And so she would comment with just like emojis, like a heart emoji or like a smiley face with the heart eyes emoji. And I was like, oh, what is happening here? And I kept digging and I kept finding more things like that. And what it turned out, what I suspected, because this went back for like months and months and months, and then there was a break, and then it was they like it kept up again. Um, so I was like, okay, I think what happened is my date knew this guy and they were some kind of item. Something happened and she like never got over him. And so I don't know if it was the next day later on or whatever. I think it was actually. It was definitely within like the next 2 days because I think I called her, she called me with the like, I think it was me. I was like, hey, that was a really cool first date, but like, I want to, like, if we want to continue like going on dates, I feel it would be appropriate to like let you know what baggage I have going in to this and then vice versa. And she was like, yeah, no, that's like a cool idea. I totally agree. So we called and I was like, here's my baggage and I just came out of a long-term relationship, blah blah blah. And she was like, okay, yeah, cool. And then she told me her baggage where she met a guy, they fell head over heels for each other, but his work had him move like halfway across the country. And they both agreed that like we basically still love each other, but that like they all neither one of them wanted to miss out on anything that could happen while the other is away. So they like agreed no hard feelings and that they're still going to see other people, but but also if he came back at the end of like a half a year, whenever his work ended, if they were still both single when he came back, they would get together. And I was like,
That's major cringe.
oh my gosh. I mean, I'm sure some of her like reasons for like all these cancelings and things were legitimate, but also like, yeah, I think deep down she just wanted to be single so that when he came back they could get back together. Um and I said something to that effect of like, oh, like, okay, thank you for telling me your baggage, like, I don't think this will work out. Like, I hope for the best for you. Because to me, she was just like very clearly still in love with this guy. And that's that. And that was one of my first dates ever
At least
with Tinder.
at least you got your closure, right? She didn't just like ghost you forever
Yes.
and then you like stop reaching out and be like, well, I guess that she was just a terrible human being who liked playing with my emotions.
Right.
Right? Like you got the explanation, which is more than most people get.
Yeah. No, she was super cool. Um, but just also like just wasn't in the stars.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be. There's a there's a How I Met Your Mother episode that kind of goes that way, right? And I'm sure you remember it, Eric, but just for the sake of the audience, the main character Ted is like in love with this girl who like he's never really spoken to. She's just like unimaginably beautiful, and every time she like her one of her relationship ends, there's like just immediately a new boyfriend, right? Like in the show, it's the joke where like he finds out that she's single and he runs over to her apartment. And by the time he gets there, she's like someone else, like some other guy's already shown up and is like they're
Opens the
already
door
dating.
and he's like, "Hey."
Yeah, there's just like already a guy there. He gets like her neighbor in the apartment to like call him
Oh
whenever the
yeah, yeah,
relationship
yeah.
ends. And he's just like upset that like oh he can't like get this girl. And at the end of the episode, she like runs into I'm guessing like her childhood like sweetheart or like one of her friends from childhood. And like they get together and they get married. And so the moral, Ted's like, it really sucked that like I really wanted to date this girl, I never did, but like she found her happily ever after, so like
Yeah,
what benefit would it have been if I had been able to date her?
right.
like, there wouldn't have been. It would have just delayed her happiness, and I would waste my time.
Yeah. And I think I had similar logic going into that, but also it also just would have been so messy to put yourself in that type of situation of like, yeah, I know you don't super, I mean, like, you have whatever feeling, but like your true feelings are someone
Yeah.
else's.
Everyone has baggage, everyone has flaws, but the key thing is that you need to find someone whose baggage is compatible with yours
Mm,
and not someone who makes yours worse. Like, I know multiple people who they'll be in a relationship with a type of person and it'll end horribly. And then for whatever reason, like the next relationship they're in or just the next person they're interested in very obviously has the same kind of personality flaws,
yeah.
and either they don't see it or they've rose tinted glasses or whatever. And my response, and I try to be like diplomatic. I'm like, this person, this guy or this girl that like you have feelings for, you're interested in, is not a bad person, and they're almost certainly like would not make like a bad partner, but they would probably make a bad partner for you
Mm,
because they have all the same issues that you had to deal with in your last relationship that did not go well, that you know that you're not compatible with.
mm.
So it's just like you gotta be super open minded, but you also gotta not let yourself be in bad situations.
Yeah.
You gotta be able to get yourself out of any situation you get yourself into.
I was thinking of saying that. You son of a gun. Also, how dare you?
That's gonna be one of the like just the often quoted quotes from this podcast.
I don't know how I feel about it.
But it's just so
It
true.
is pretty true. It is wise words. Words should be shared.
Yeah. So Sophie, I hope that we addressed your question. Your concerns. I hope that we offered some amount of insight. I hope that these two single guys and our dating advice is helping someone out there. You know, because that's how it works.
Oh yeah, definitely. We have the most useful information to provide. For sure, for sure, for sure. Definitely,
Here's how to
definitely,
not end
definitely.
up like us.
Um, yeah, just to like kind of, I forget the saying, but tuck this in neatly, I suppose. Um, enjoy what you have while you can, but don't give up per se. You know what I think? I think it's pretty a cool tool to radiate such an aura that you're just immediately getting rid of weak people. Like, isn't that what everyone wants? That like once you find someone, you know they're like they can at least withstand your aura.
Yeah, I wish that I give off like an ineffable aura that would just make losers like not pay attention, like leave me alone. Yeah, I think you said it best. Yeah, that's
It's
very
it's
funny.
just a deterrent. It's just like,
Yep.
can you withstand me? No. Perish.
All right, Eric, do you have anything else to say?
I don't believe that I do really outside of, good luck. So good luck to anyone trying to find love in this time because, it's rough out there, but always treat yourself to some hot chocolate or something. And if you can't drink hot chocolate, woof. Whatever a fun beverage is for you. A fruit punch, maybe.
I like fruit punch. As a kid, fruit punch was like my favorite drink. As an adult, probably not even in the top 25.
Dang. Really slid.
Yeah, I don't know if they changed the recipe or what. What I will say is that I think I think if we really think about what love is, what the pursuit of trying to find the perfect person is, you know, even whether it's some obscure figure off in the distance in your future, or if it's someone who you have your eyes set on that you must reach, whether physically or you must reach them, like you must like attain, go up to the same level as them. I think that Truly, love can be described as the grand chase.
I knew it. I knew it.
Play it off